Coming up on this week's episode of TechSNAP, researchers prove it's possible to extract an RSA key from the noises your computer makes. The NSA foils the great BIOS plot, but we're a little skeptical. And then it's a great batch of your questions and our answers. All that and a heck of a lot more on this week's episode of TechSNAP. Everyone, and welcome to TechSNAP. This is episode 142 of Jupiter Broadcasting's weekly Systems Network and Administration podcast. We stream this episode live on December 19th for release on December 26, 2013. This episode is brought to you by our three fine sponsors, GoDaddy, Ting, and IX Systems. And the live stream is powered by the incredible Scale Engine over at scaleengine.com. Got to go check them out because, well, it does all of the things. My name is Chris, and joining us every single week is our host, the admin, our tech, and of course, our teacher, Mr. Alan Jude. Hey there, Alan.
Hey, Chris. Everybody. Thanks for coming.
Proprietor of Scale Engine.
Sure.
And you know, Alan, as a lot of people are finding, there's places that were once friendly to their content. Like I'm thinking of Twitch and YouTube that are no longer friendly to their content. Places like Scale Engine would be the perfect spot for them to go check out. I am currently battling YouTube Content ID like you wouldn't believe. I mentioned on the air earlier, but last Tuesday, I disputed 30 videos before 9:30 in the morning. I was just sitting there disputing as many as possible. We are getting flagged constantly. I'm really thankful that if you go over to jupiterbroadcasting.com and you want to watch a video, we have it available as HTML5, and all of that streams from Scale Engine. And it's nice to know that even if my YouTube account gets shut down because of all the bogus claims, people can still watch our content on our website.
It's the difference when you pay for something, you get a little more service than when you get it for free.
Right. Well, and it's also Scale Engine is the right size. You guys have the capacity and the network that's built out to deliver what I need. But you're a good, it's a good sized company where it doesn't have all of these.
You can still, talk to a person if
exactly. Whereas in YouTube, it's like fill out this form, and maybe if you really, really, really complain loud enough, eventually a YouTube rep will get a hold of you. Pretty weak. Our first story this week is one of those stories that I thought would only be from a sci-fi novel, maybe from like a movie. It's pretty wild. RSA key extraction using acoustic cryptanalysis. You want to tell us about this?
Yep. So this is a paper from a couple of researchers in Israel. And they said that most computers emit a high-pitched noise during their operation. It's like resonance from the coils and the capacitors and all that kind of thing.
Sure.
Because of the vibration in those electronic components. So these acoustic emanations are more than just annoying noise that your computer makes. They can convey information about the software that's running on your computer. And in particular, it can leak sensitive information about security-related computations.
What?
When you're calculating crypto keys.
You mean that annoying little transistor noise is actually giving away computer secrets for real, Alan?
It could be, yes. So in the report with the PDF that we'll link to, they describe a new acoustic cryptanalysis key extraction attack that's applicable to GPG, or GNU Privacy Guard, the email encryption system, and its current implementation of RSA. And with the attack, by setting a cell phone within a few inches of somebody's laptop, the cell phone can record the noises that are made by the computer and be able to steal the person's cryptographic keys.
The mic on the cell phone is sensitive enough.
Yeah. To do it from if you're setting like on the table beside the laptop.
Okay.
They also built a fancier rig that uses like a parabolic shotgun microphone.
Yeah.
And that one can do it from 4 meters away, which is about 13 feet. So you can just point at your computer from 4 meters away and focus in on it.
That's pretty tricky.
Or another one they talked about in the paper is build it inside of a computer and then get it sent to a co-location and in the same rack as the person who you're trying to steal the data from.
Which maybe a state-sponsored type investigator might have the resources to do.
Well, or even just corporate espionage, or if you're just after anybody's crypto keys just to prove it.
Yeah.
Or whatever.
Yeah. Write the paper.
Yeah. So experimentally, they demonstrate that such an attack can actually be carried out using either just, like I said, a plain mobile phone or a more sensitive microphone rig. We have some pictures of some of the different rigs on their website there. And they show one of, just a cell phone sitting on the table beside, a couple inches away from a laptop, and it can pick up what it's trying to here.
This doesn't sound like sci-fi to you a little bit? Like you're extracting RSA keys via the sound that the transistors are making.
Not really. They submitted a patch to GNU-PG to make it harder to do.
Yeah, there's even a CVE for it.
Yeah. So one of the other ones they mentioned was it doesn't have to be my cell phone I use to spy on your computer. I could put malware on your phone because you're more likely to set your cell phone on the table beside your computer than you are to not be suspicious of me kind of setting my cell phone over by your computer, right?
Good point.
Or, go construct a web page that uses the microphone of the computer, right? So it uses Flash or HTML5 media capture or, something in a VoIP plan or something. So just get you to open my website in your browser and then use Flash to pick up your microphone and stream it back to me.
Mm-hmm.
Or, like I said, send a server to a co-location facility and put a good microphone inside the physical case, and you can extract the keys of nearby servers in the rack.
One of the researchers on this project was Adi Shamir. He is the S in RSA. And
yes, and also the inventor of Shamir's secret sharing scheme, which is a way to take an RSA key and break it up into pieces so that you need... you can do things like the two-man rule. So you're going to give 3 or 4 people the keys, and you need at least 2 of them together in order to get the whole key to be able to do something. Or you can say, you need 3 out of 5 people or any combination. Or you can just be like, we need all 5 people to agree in order to decrypt this.
Kind of gives some legitimacy to this whole thing, too.
Yeah. Well, if anybody was going to figure this stuff out, it was that.
Yeah, I suppose so.
But apparently it worked in the setup. Based on a couple of assumptions and stuff, but so the email client was set up to automatically decrypt the emails when they came in. So they would just keep emailing you, and then the phone would listen for the different sounds as each email came in, and it was decrypted, and they could bit by bit reconstruct the key.
It's blowing
of course,
my mind.
with an attack kind of like that, you might assume the person would figure it out when they get 4,000 emails or something, but. And they say, one of the questions is, how vulnerable are other algorithms and different implementations, right? Yeah. They only tested GNU-PG RSA. They didn't test it against, GNU-PG LGML or other implementations of RSA. But they said they're not sure, but they imagine the same idea could be adapted to work with those as well.
It also looks like you kind of need a fingerprint database of the sounds different computers make. They line up an Asus, a Dell, an HP, a couple HPs, a Samsung, and a Lenovo, and each of them have their own unique acoustic sort of footprint, I guess you could call it, or fingerprint.
And you wonder how much of that is just the different hardware. Like if you had 2 different brands, but they had the same model of CPU and the same chipset, if they would be a lot closer together, or if they would still be very different.
And would the power draw of the other components in the computer be a factor? Like if one computer had a very powerful GPU, or maybe had 4 hard drives, would there be variations?
Because they asked, most people's first question is, won't the attack be foiled by loud fan noises or people doing other things on the computer or having lots of computers in the same room? And they said, usually not. The interesting acoustic signals are mostly above 10 kilohertz. Whereas, fan noise is 60 hertz, right? And different things like that. So, typical computer fan noise and room noise are concentrated at lower frequencies and can be filtered out when they're listening over the phone and so on. For task switching systems, where you're going to have lots of programs running and stuff, different tasks can be distinguished from each other by the different signatures of the acoustic spectrum. And, having multiple cores on the computer actually makes the attack easier rather than harder because it shifts the signal frequencies.
Oh, really? Throughout the paper,
multi-core tends to be slower, right?
All of this testing was against GNU-PG. So, that's pretty common. That's a pretty popular piece of software.
It's the people that are most worried about their keys being stolen by somebody pointing a microphone at them are probably using.
So true. It's so
hence the patch.
Ironic, yeah. It's great, and they waited to release this report until they had worked with the GNU-PG guys. So that's good.
Get a version out with the patch.
Yeah.
And so one of the other questions is, how realistic is it to actually perform this attack? And they say to apply the attack to GNU-PG, they had to find a way to make GNU-PG automatically decrypt text that they chose.
Okay.
And so the idea is to use an encrypted email message following standard, open PGP or PGP/MIME. For example, they used Enigmail, the Thunderbird email client, automatically decrypts incoming emails for notification purposes using GNU-PG. An attacker can notify, or an attacker could send suitably crafted messages to the victim, wait until they reach the target computer, and observe the different acoustic signatures of the decryption, and allow them to make a closed-loop adaptive attack. And then most important question is, what countermeasures are available? They said one obvious countermeasure is use sound dampening equipment, like put your computer in a soundproof box, but that's probably a little extreme.
Can I cover it in tinfoil?
Conversely, using a sufficiently strong wideband noise source, so just making a bunch of noise in the frequencies they're trying to listen to. Although I don't know that you'd want to be in the same room as a computer doing that. Although I guess 10 kilohertz is probably above human hearing. I'm not sure. Enough ergonomic considerations may render this unattractive.
Yeah.
And they also said careful circuit design and high-quality electronic components could probably reduce the amount of noise leaking out of the components and the vibrations.
Yeah, okay.
Alternatively, one can change the cryptographic software and employ algorithmic techniques to reduce the usefulness of the emanations, right? So fake decrypting, keeping the computer busy doing other things while it's doing the different things.
They also compared it. This was interesting. They compared it to other types of acoustic attacks. Like when you think of an acoustic attack, you think of like the CIA with a parabolic mic listening to somebody type out their password on a keyboard. They said that eavesdropping on a keyboard keystrokes has often been discussed. Keys can be distinguished by timing or their different sounds. While this attack is applicable to data that is entered manually, e.g. passwords, it is not applicable to larger secret data such as RSA keys, which is a great point, right? That's the huge
nobody
thing you're getting here.
Nobody types out their RSA key.
Exactly. You're getting stuff that nobody ever enters in or says out loud.
Somebody with a microphone have lots of fun with my keyboard.
I'm still like just kind of processing this. The PDF they have linked has got a ton of good stuff in it. This seems like this would be a really fun experiment to try out. And then to actually like succeed, that must have been a moment. That must have been a rush. Wow.
The research was sponsored by Checkpoint Institute, which is security researchers, the Israeli Ministry of Science and Technology, and the Israeli Center for Research Excellence, and NATO's Public Diplomacy Division.
Paid by the NSA. No. Well, good one. That's a really interesting story. Any other thoughts on that one, Alan?
Yep. Do I have any more notes? No. There's new versions of GNU-PG 1 and 2 to solve the problem. Mm-hmm. And we have links to the PDF, background information about Adi Shamir, and also information about that Shamir's secret sharing scheme that I mentioned, because it's just random, interesting stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, the PDF's got some great shots of it. Like, here's what it looks like when you're capturing from a ThinkPad. It's like, wow, okay. They got it dialed in. All right, well, I want to thank our first sponsor this week, and that is GoDaddy.com. Now, do you know that the TechSNAP show here is brought to you by GoDaddy, and they've got something special. Their new website builder is brand new. It's easy to create your own website, put your business online, and find new customers. You can choose from hundreds of customizable designs, and you're on your way. Website Builder even includes a free domain, hosting, and 24/7 support. It is go time. Visit GoDaddy.com. Enter the promo code WSB7. That's Website Builder 7 when you check out, and you'll get Website Builder for only $1 per month for 12 months. There's some limitations that apply, so go check out their website. If you click the banner in our show notes, that'll supercharge your shopping session, and you can also find the limitation info at the top of their website. Great way to go if you need to get your presence online, if you've got friends or family need a little bit of help in this area, or if you just want to claim your space in the internet real estate, go over to GoDaddy.com and use the promo code WSB7 when you check out Website Builder 7 to get it for $1 a year. That's great for all kinds of purposes and uses, and that Website Builder is integrated in with the GoDaddy hosting, so you get to take advantage of GoDaddy's fantastic hosting. It's integrated too with SEO optimizations, and they can spin off a mobile version for you as well. Pretty nice. Good stuff. So a big thank you to GoDaddy for sponsoring the TechSNAP show. Don't forget, use that promo code WSB7 when you check out. All right, Alan, our next story just I just when I heard this on 60 Minutes, I my mouth. I think I actually out loud, I swore. I was like, this is unbelievable. So have you heard of the BIOS plot, Alan? And could you tell us about it?
Yeah. So this is the NSA during their interview on 60 Minutes claimed that they foiled the BIOS plot, which was a plot by a unnamed nation state. China, that was the exploit would have ruined or bricked computers across the country, causing untold damage to the nation and even the global economy.
That sounds pretty menacing.
Yes.
A BIOS attack, huh?
Well, that's what it was called. They don't really get into much detail about how it was actually going to work, which is one of the more interesting parts about it. It's like, oh, well, we don't know how it was going to work. So Deborah Plunkett, the director of cyber defense for the National Security Agency, described the cataclysmic cyber threat that the NSA claims to have stopped.
Yeah. With no details.
Yeah. So CBS reported that the virus would have been delivered via a software update for every computer's BIOS.
Which is a little fishy in space.
Most people don't update their BIOSes.
Right.
In general, it's recommended you only update the BIOS if the new version solves a problem you have or adds support for hardware you have.
Yeah.
Like generally, because of the risk involved of breaking the computer, you don't do it unless you have a good reason to.
Well, and the way they say it, too, they say it...
And most people wouldn't even know what it was or how to do it.
They also call it a virus. In the interview, they say the virus would be delivered via a software update to the BIOS. Now, I don't know about you, but I've never had a computer's BIOS that actually, like, goes all the way out to the internet, connects to, like, some company's FTP server and downloads the firmware directly. So at best... the only way I could figure you could deliver this is if your BIOS supported flashing within Windows and you had administrative rights on the Windows box and you got tricked into downloading a virus that then would flash your BIOS.
Or somehow like hijack Windows Update with using a rogue SSL certificate in order to man in the middle of your traffic.
But they're talking, I mean, they were saying every computer.
Yeah, that's the funny one. It's like, who'd want to kill every computer? It doesn't even make any sense.
If you could actually manage a BIOS update that could be flashed to almost every computer on the net, that'd be one hell of a technical feat, really.
Yeah. If you could do that, we would just replace every BIOS on the internet with core boot.
Yeah. Well, and you see, I mean, like UEFI is being rolled out pretty quickly, and there's less and less machines with BIOSes.
And, well, UEFI is only going to make this worse, not better.
Yeah. UEFI
is like more lines of code than the Linux kernel.
Yeah, I've had a couple of machines with it. I'm not a fan.
Yeah.
I was pretty awestruck by this whole thing. And of course, they claim too, Alan, which I thought was kind of odd. They claim they worked with hardware manufacturers to patch the vulnerability.
When?
Where's the CVE?
Well, sure, there's that. But like, when did they patch this? For it to be in computers people are buying in the store today, it would have had to been done at least 6 months ago.
Yeah, and
years ago.
And I haven't flashed it, and I haven't heard of any problem.
So my computer's, the BIOS is from like 2009 or something.
Yeah. Well, and if you have a whole server farm, don't you want to know if your server farm could be bricked with a virus remotely?
So if they only, like, even if every motherboard manufacturer or whatever went out and offered new firmware, the percentage of people that are going to update is going to be really low.
Minimal, yeah.
So how did they solve this problem again? In what way?
I think the way it was phrased is what they discovered wasn't the virus itself, but the intention to create a virus. But then if what they found was the intention and stopped that intention, why do they later in the interview say they worked with hardware manufacturers?
Yeah, because worked with them to do what?
It's sounding like crap to me. This is sounding like crap. I'm not buying this.
Well, what it's sounding like, actually, is a plot from a book that I read recently.
Yeah, that's right. That is very much like a plot. You thinking of Zero Day?
We recommended the book Zero Day, written by Mark Rusinovich, who's a Microsoft security researcher. We recommended it like a month ago or so.
Yeah.
On the show because I had read it, and it just as a geeky novel to read, it gets all the technical details about the computer security stuff right, because it was written by a real security researcher who got into writing books, rather than, normally you have a regular novelist who just interviews somebody and tries to get the computer stuff right.
Yeah, so, and we've had some people say...
Actually talking about like Active Directory and and how it actually works.
We've had some people say it's fear-mongering, but I think it's more like an intellectual exercise than it is fear-mongering. Do you want me to play a sample of it? I can play it.
You mean the book?
Yeah.
The book's definitely not about fear-mongering. It's just kind of a spy book, really. But
yeah, I know. I'm just telling you what people wrote it and said. Yeah, I'm going to play a sample.
Chapter 1. Manhattan, New York City. Friday, August 11th, 12:01 a.m. Shh. When the whisper came out of the darkness, the man stopped. A vast panel of glass covered the wall before him, displaying uptown Manhattan in a scene that might have been sold as a poster. Ambient light and the soft glow from a dozen computer monitors was all that spared the room total darkness. The logo of Fisherman, Platt, and Cohen floated on each monitor. In the hallway, the steps faded. A moment later, her fingers touched his arm, pressing lightly against the soft skin on the inside of his wrist.
Oh, we'll cut it off right there. Who knows what happens next? Who knows?
all the computers turn off when they get hit with this BIOS attack.
Yeah.
That's what happens.
Yeah, exactly. It's literally like an NSA analyst read this book and said, well, this could happen.
Yeah. So the book was published in March 2011. So it means they would have had to come up with it quite a bit before that. So say it was written early in 2010. And he would have had to come up with it before that, probably. So is the NSA trying to take credit today for something that happened more than 3 years ago?
Maybe.
Is that their only example of when they saved the world?
I feel like it really seemed like
they just something like, oh.
It was like they wanted to have some technical jargon in the interview because they say the BIOS plot to destroy computers. And then they go, the BIOS is the basic input-output system of your computers that starts up all the systems and controls the essential hardware. You know, like they do this kind of like, ooh, it's technical. I don't know. Pretty weak sauce. I'd love to hear an opposing point of view because
the worst is, so in the book, the bad guys, rather than the Chinese, there's just a small group of wealthy people kind of loosely affiliated with Al-Qaeda that just want to take out the U.S. economy. But the NSA seems to imply that the Chinese just want to take out the world economy.
Yeah.
Like that would hurt
them too.
Chinese at least as much as everybody else.
TechDirt had a great kind of write-up on the whole NSA piece on 60 Minutes, really kind of broke it down bit by bit. But when it got to the BIOS plot, because that's what they call it in the CBS interviews, the BIOS plot, like TechDirt's just like, really, you guys? Like, they have all of this point-by-point great responses, and then it gets to the BIOS plot, and they're like, are you even joking with this one? But it's a good read if you saw that 60 Minutes bit and you had some questions. We'll link to that in the show.
Yeah, it's annoying when we have interviews like that and there's no technical details because it's hard to evaluate whether this is even, if what they're talking about is even practicable.
It sounds like they're just trying to scare people.
What they're talking about, they just make, oh, don't worry, we saved you from this big terrorist attack that we're not going to tell you anything about.
It sounds like they're trying to be scary, like they're trying to scare non-technical people because they use technical terms. They call it a BIOS plot. You sprinkle in a little Chinese fear. Which, by the way, the NSA didn't.
Was it like the gunpowder plot?
Yeah, you speak a little Chinese fear, a little plot to destroy the economy. Bob's your uncle, you know.
But you know, in general, if it was going to happen or something, it would most likely be a small group of people because it's the only people that would want to destroy the whole world would be people that don't have any interest in it, right? Yeah. Like China has a lot of interest in the U.S. economy not tanking.
Imacon says it's an attempt to save face, to just kind of prove their value.
Yes, so they've somehow magically protected us from a plot that only existed in a novel.
The interview also featured millennials because the NSA has felt like their message hasn't been getting to the millennials. So they had a three-person...
millennials is the problem.
I know, right? I know. And so they had a three-person millennial team that they set up to discuss the various stuff, but it's all very like inference and suggestions, no specifics. And I realize some of the stuff has to be classified for national security purposes, but if you stop a plot, I go back to, if it really is truly about keeping people secure, the only actual way to accomplish that, if there is a real threat, is to provide information so that the people who are responsible for securing these systems know what actions they need to take to secure them. And if you just use vague references and inferences and never give us any details, then we all remain vulnerable. So if this BIOS plot is real, they're doing a massive disservice to the U.S. economy and the rest of the world, because all of us now have, theoretically, if your machine's older than a couple of years old, a vulnerable BIOS to this BIOS virus that could attack us at any time.
And yet I've never heard of any computer ever being bricked in this fashion.
Yeah.
And if they were attacking people, you think you would have heard of it.
I'm trying to remember, like, way back in the day. Did we have viruses like this back in the old days?
There was one called CMOS something.
Yeah.
It took out a BIOS like that.
Yeah.
It's like if you booted off this floppy disk or whatever.
Right. Yeah, it was like it was a boot sector virus that would... Yeah.
That would get into the CMOS or something. It would just erase all your settings or something, and if you didn't know how to reset them, the computer wouldn't boot anymore.
That does ring a bell. I'm wondering if the chat room knows what we're talking about, because that sounds real familiar.
A friend's computer got it.
Yeah, that was never my computer, Alan.
CMOS something. Yeah. Well, my computer was a compact, and it had that crazy, partition at the beginning of the disk that had like the BIOS just started an actual miniature operating system, and so you got the huge menus and stuff. It was a lot fancier than your typical like Phoenix or a Word BIOS.
Here we go. Chat room's reminding us of the Chernobyl virus, which was from 25 years ago, actually 26 years ago. Let's see, I'm reading about it right now. Also called the CIH virus, known as Chernobyl, was first discovered in 1998 and quickly became the most commonly encountered viruses in the wild. Although never as widespread as other malware at its time, like the Melissa virus, CIH viruses still appeared high in the malware charts. The payload was created for the biggest cause of concern. It was dubbed Chernobyl by the media because it was programmed to activate its destructive payload on the anniversary of the Chernobyl reactor meltdown. Okay. Here's what it did.
This one,
it wiped hard drives and overwrote the BIOS. That's pretty bad.
So anti-CMOS was a boot virus. It was first discovered in Slovenia and Hong Kong in 1994, but didn't become common until it spread to North America in 1995. Anti-CMOS was a fairly standard boot virus and is primarily notable for being one of the few DOS viruses to actually remain in the wild as of 2005.
Appears to be it was isolated in Hong Kong several times in 1994, but not become common in North America until 1995.
It was named because its intended effect of erasing all CMOS information, but sometimes it didn't occur because of a bug in the virus code.
Maybe they're talking about this kind of thing. Like, the NSA has been around for a while. Maybe they did it back in the 90s.
Well, I know computers that got hit with it in the 90s, and so they didn't save anybody there.
Right. Well, now, if that 1990s virus comes a knocking, the NSA is going to come walking, and they're going to take it out.
On a related note, there's a sequel to that book called Trojan Horse. In it, China uses advanced persistent threat style techniques to compromise the computer at the UN Office for Disarmament Affairs, who's writing a report about Iran's progress on getting nuclear weapons. The report originally says that it's imminent and that within a month, Iran's going to detonate their first test nuclear warhead.
Whoa.
The Chinese hack it and alter it slightly to say not that, to say that they're never going to get one. Just changing a couple words in the doc or whatever. And they do it just as the guy is emailing it, so that his signature, like he cryptographically signs the document in the email. So then it says that it couldn't have been modified, and then they come try to blame him and stuff. But just keep an eye on the news, and if you see that story come up in the next year or two, you'll know where the NSA got it from.
Well, yeah, no kidding, right? They're just a little behind on their reading. Not related at all. But this is just starting to pop up online today that we're recording this. So there was this findings that came from a White House panel about some reforms that the NSA should make. And included in there was that they should stop doing a bulk collection of cell metadata and that the cell providers should have to collect that and the NSA should have to go to them. The other recommendation, I just bring it up because we've talked about before, like how you could get into a database and flip a number and it could make the world of difference, right? In this recommendation from the White House review panel, they recommended that governments should not use their offensive cybersecurity capabilities to change the amounts held in financial accounts or otherwise manipulate financial systems. Specifically, they talk about how the accusation here is that the NSA could potentially connect into, say, like Brazil's database of some kind, maybe like the oil company's database, and flip a number in their financial database. And the recommendation on page 221 from the White House is that we should stop doing that. So I bet we'll be hearing some stories about that.
Because wait for the roundup, and we have a story about not that, but something similar.
Industry officials felt that this represented an unprecedented intrusion into financial institutions' databases, it was said in the report.
Yeah, spy agency, the NSA is supposed to collect information, it was never actually meant to have an offensive capability per se.
Right. But they are in charge of cyber defense.
Yeah.
All right, well, why don't we take a quick break right here and thank IX Systems. They are a sponsor of the TechSNAP program, and IX Systems makes hardware that is designed and built for enterprise open source storage. I tell you what, if your company you've been working for has been discussing deploying a FreeNAS or a ZFS-based storage array, which I think a lot of you are, IX Systems is the way to go. These guys have got FreeBSD and FreeNAS dialed in. Alan, they also have TrueNAS. What's TrueNAS?
TrueNAS is basically an enterprise version of FreeNAS. It's got they're set up so you'd have two heads, and then they'd be connected to each
for
multipath to
ultimate high availability. Yeah.
It's got some extra features and more management stuff. It's more targeted at enterprise, whereas FreeNAS is mostly not. So it's basically FreeNAS with lots of extra goodness. It has their implementation of the hot spare system and some of the stuff that isn't in FreeBSD yet. And they have all kinds of great features. And it's definitely what you want if you're worried about high availability. You can actually have, like I said, two separate physical machines that are just controllers. They're like 1U or 2U controller machines. And then they connect via external SAS to one or more storage sleds full of drives. That way, if one of those machines goes down, the other one could still take over.
IX Systems is also really involved in the FreeBSD community. I don't think I've ever seen like a BSD con or an event that IX Systems doesn't have a presence at, right?
For sure. Yeah, it's more than just sponsoring the event, but they're actually there and participating, and they give talks. And
that's how I met them. They attend Linux Fest Northwest, and I met them at Linux Fest Northwest.
Yep.
They seem like really cool people. And I know like Scale Engine uses a ton of IX gear.
Oh, yes. All of our gear now comes from there.
So here's how you get started. If you want to find out more information, go over to ixsystems.com/TechSNAP. They've also got the ultimate guide to buying a new server for open source, and be a great way to let them know that you heard about them here on the show by grabbing that. Let them know you're paying attention. And then again, that's ixsystems.com/TechSNAP. And one of the things that IX Systems has a great line of machines. I have the FreeNAS Mini. It comes with a Core i5 processor in there. A lot of their machines, all of their machines use Intel chips. Is that right?
Yes, all their machines.
That's on a server. That's what I just prefer. I know a lot of people have different choices, but I think it's great. They have some of the best hardware out there. They have some of the best support out there. Their support options start before you make your purchase and then continue long after you've made your purchase. You can open a ticket at any time. They got rock solid hardware support. Experts in the software industry. And the best thing is when you get a rig, you know it's already gone through their rigorous QA standard, leveraging their battle-tested burn-in and QA process, virtually eliminating the chance of a dead-on-arrival machine.
For sure.
Makes me want to buy a server right now.
When you're throwing stuff in a data center, you're going to buy and get it and ship it there, and then it doesn't work. It's like, well, that's a pain.
Oh, yeah. Where are they based out of? Where's their office?
They're like across the street from Supermicro in San Jose, California.
Okay. Very nice. Well,
so that also gives them a kind of unique relationship with their hardware supplier.
Right. No kidding. Right. Excuse me. We just need to clarify something. That's pretty cool.
We need more of those little screws for the hard drive.
Right. Yeah, we're just this close to finishing. And you know what? They are really in a great position because not only do they have a close relationship like that with the hardware provider, but they have got folks from FreeBSD, from the community that work there with them too.
Well, yeah, there's just a ridiculous number of kernel hackers, and some of the greatest features coming into FreeBSD now are coming out of there.
That's huge.
Alexander Motin did a bunch of changes to the GOM layer to get more IOPS. When he started, he had 16 desktop SSDs spread across 4 LSI cards in a desktop machine. When he started, FreeBSD could manage about 400,000 IOPS on it. He wrote some patches, and now he can do over 1 million IOPS.
Whoa.
Didn't change the hardware, just fix the software.
those are the kind of folks working over at IX Systems. So go get started by going to ixsystems.com/TechSNAP, and a really big thank you to IX Systems for sponsoring the TechSNAP program. Really happy to have these guys here. We asked them, we've been wanting them to be a sponsor of this show for a long time because
very long time.
We really think these guys are a great fit for you guys out there looking to buy their kind of hardware. You got to go check them out. All right, Alan.
That's where I buy all my stuff.
That's
even
right.
from my house.
Yeah, really. From routers to high-end servers. All right, our next story brings us on to maybe a slightly controversial topic. I don't know. We'll see if any of you developers are out there watching. You might get a little upset about this one. But sometimes we've talked about, like, what the hell can we do in the cases of Sun and Java and Oracle now later, or Adobe with Flash and Acrobat, where so many of these massive compromises that cost companies millions of dollars come through essentially negligence in the software development. So, Alan, there's been a bit of a proposal to maybe try to help curb some of this. See what I did there?
Crabs.
Yeah, I know, but
I know.
call them crabs.
Yep. So security experts have long opined of one way to make software more secure would be to hold software makers liable for vulnerabilities in the product. But that's probably not very workable, and it would, companies wouldn't be very willing to keep making software if they get sued if something went wrong.
Yes.
So that idea is often dismissed as unrealistic, and it would stifle innovation, and it'd be problems, and especially when now the software industry is kind of a large driver of commercial growth and productivity. But a new study released this week presents a clear economic case for compelling companies to pay for information about security vulnerabilities for the product. So as we've talked about before, there's like this black market where you can go and buy exploits for software. Mm-hmm. The idea here is to force companies to pay researchers more than the black market pays for the exploits.
So the idea would be make it more profitable to actually sell the exploit to the companies themselves.
Yes, although at that point, I wonder if the black market price would just keep going up.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Is that wouldn't that just be the natural response to that? Maybe not. I don't know. Right. I guess if you incentivized it to do these things in the light among a higher pay, that was like one of many things that might do it.
So Stefan Fry, who's the director of research at NSS Labs, suggests compelling companies to purchase all the vulnerabilities at above black market prices might work. The director of research at the Austin, Texas lab examined all the software vulnerabilities reported during 2012 and found that the top 10 software makers were responsible for more than 30% of all the flaws that were actually fixed. Not the ones that were found, but were fixed. And then looking at that, if each of those vendors had been required to pay $150,000 per bug, it would have come in at less than 0.2% of the company's annual revenue.
That's an interesting way to look at it.
Although, even in this research, there's the cases of, well, what about Mozilla? They fixed lots of bugs in Firefox, and they technically don't make very much revenue at all, right? It also says, to ensure that submitting bugs get addressed and not hijacked by other regional interests, if we created some central authority on exploits like this, what's to stop the NSA from taking all the exploits that are reported and not getting them fixed and be like, haha, we get exploits for free. We don't have to pay Mandy or don't have to play VuPen anymore.
Right.
So they suggested actually having separate ones for different regions and then coordinating them and stuff to try to avoid any one government from
multi-regional vulnerability markets that people would come to?
Well, let's not quite markets, I think, but like reporting systems. And,
tracking.
And testing labs.
Okay,
and part of it was also that the centralized authority would be testing the vulnerabilities and stuff and making sure that the companies are only getting the ones that need to be fixed reported to them so that the companies aren't getting overwhelmed with bug reports.
Huh. Jedediah in the chat room says that maybe these companies could use like some sort of insurance policy. So if they had to go make a purchase like this, they'd just make a claim on their insurance claim.
Possibly. I definitely see the case for having bug bounties. I don't think they need to be $150,000 per bug.
Well, and this would only work at like the large company scale because you can have small software creators who have software deployed in large enterprise. I've worked in
And there's plenty of one-man open source projects.
Yeah, that too. They could then just get wide, massive adoption.
Right. So, yeah, there's more framework that would have to go into it. But I definitely think a bug bounty program can do a lot of good, especially, a reward of $500 maybe isn't quite enough, maybe depending on the vulnerability and stuff.
This would be an industry-wide bug bounty. So instead of Google doing their own bug bounty program and Facebook and et cetera, this would be something standardized across the board. It also seems like if I was Oracle, it seems like I could go, if I'm making a big sale, like say I'm going to sell Oracle to the NSA to store everybody's metadata. And it's going to be this big, fat contract, but it's a massive vulnerability if anything ever happens. It seems like an agreement could be made with Oracle, and Oracle will say, you know what? Push comes to shove. If there's a 0-day out there against our product, we will take the burden of going out there and buying it off the market. Like, it doesn't even have to be like, it could just be part of a negotiation process. Like, it could be a part that they're throwing in to land a contract.
Right, but if they buy it, that doesn't mean they're going to fix it.
Right.
And, if it's on the black market, how's Oracle going to know it's there? Right? Because the black market doesn't want Oracle to have the bug. Although, at some point, they're just whoever will pay the most, I suppose.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. But you could see how, like, a small developer could really get crushed by this kind of thing.
Yeah. And you can see how an auction wouldn't necessarily work, because if Oracle's contractually obligated to buy the vulnerability, then how's the auction end?
So local submitter submits to his local area. We would then go to a qualification center, and then the qualification center would verify it, and then they would contact the software vendor.
Right, because like when we looked at Google starting to offer bug bounties for open source stuff. If you they looked at doing a bug bounty for open source stuff, and they said, well, the problem is they get too many bug reports to open source projects that are already stretched kind of thin. So making them deal with all these spurious bug reports, people trying to get money out of Google, wouldn't really help. So instead, what they did was, here's a list of features we want to see, and if you implement this, we'll pay you. But that same token is this system has these qualification centers to make sure that to separate the actual bugs from just people reporting stuff to try to get money out of a bug bounty program, so that what the company is actually getting is all ones they legitimately need to focus on, because otherwise they'll tend to just start ignoring all the incoming emails.
So as governments become more paranoid about cyber defense, and as societies become more dependent on software, I could almost see like this is sort of like the free market approach to this problem. But if they don't come up with something, eventually, don't you think governments will require some sort of responsibility for faulty code, at least at some level?
The problem here is that if governments were only interested in cyber defense, it could work. The problem is governments are interested in cyber offense.
Yeah.
So they want to get the vulnerabilities and only they have them. And so they can't be trusted to be part of the process.
That's a good point. Yeah, that is true. That's why it would be good for the private industry to come up with its own solution. Although even there could be some double interest at play.
Yeah. So the question is, would this actually reduce cybercrime, or would it simply hamper innovation, or, how do we deal with it for open source projects? Do you just say the amount of the bug bounty is proportional to the revenue of the company, and how do you measure that?
Jeez, yeah.
And, it comes down to a lot of things.
A lot of questions, really, still left.
Yep.
Commercial software is a tiny part of the whole vulnerability problem, they go on to say. They acknowledge that the mere threat of governments imposing some kind of requirement is often enough to induce business and entire industries to self-regulate, to take affirmative steps to avoid being tangled in more bureaucracy and red tape. Kind of what they're trying to accomplish here.
And then separately, if we accept that the average zero-day exploit persists for about 312 days before it gets detected and then patched, and then longer before it gets patched.
Oh, okay.
This means that firms that provide access to zero-day exploits, looking at the numbers, Symantec Research Lab predicted that the firms that sell them provide access to at least 85 zero-day exploits on any given day of the year. And these companies all say they reserve the right to restrict which organizations, individuals, or nation states may purchase the products. But they all expressly do not share the information about exploits with the software vendor.
Right.
So Endgame Systems offered about 25 exploits per year. for $2.5 million. Exodus Intelligence had 60 exploits per year. Revuln had about 9. And VuPen had 7 exploits per year, and they had 15 to 20 binary analysis and private one-day exploits per month.
And we know from the Snowden leaks that the NSA spends about $25 million a year on buying vulnerabilities.
Yep.
So they're doing it. It's happening. Gosh, I wish I could get in on that. That sounds like some good old cyber money. Please send payment in Litecoin. No. Yeah. All right, Al, any other thoughts on that story?
Nope, that's about it for that one.
Good links in that one, including the the article that was published on Krebs on Security on December 13th. The how many 0-day hits, how many 0 days hit you today is the title of the article, where
and if the market out there has 85 on any given day, because it takes about a year before before they get used enough that the vendors figure out how the people were doing it.
Yeah.
It means that, they only have to find one every, they only have to find 2 a week, and they can keep up that pace.
Righto. Okay, Alan, well, I want to save folks some cash by sending them over to ting.com. That's right, TechSNAP.ting.com, where you can take $25 off your first device. Or if you've got a Sprint-compatible device and want to bring it over the Ting network, go check out their BYOD page, and you'll save $25 off your first month of service. Ting has no contracts, no early termination fees, and what's really awesome about Ting is the way their rate structure works. This is pretty cool. So what Ting does is they take your messages, your minutes, and your megabytes. See, I got my Nexus 5 right here, and I got my HTC One right here. Now, the problem is, ever since I got the Nexus 5, I'm not using the HTC One very much, but I still want to use it for testing, and if I do eventually get around to hiring an editor, I think I'll be giving them this HTC One. The great thing about that is I only pay for what I use on this HTC One right now. It's just $6 a month for a flat rate. You can have a pooled set of minutes, so if you have multiple phones like I do, they all pull from the same spot, and they just take the messages, the megabytes, and the minutes on each device, add them up, and whatever you fall into, whatever bucket that makes it, that's what you pay. It's really, really straightforward, and you could have unlimited devices on one single plan, which means for a business or a family, that's really easy. But their online control panel brings it all together, my friends. It makes it really easy to manage all of that. Plus, every Ting plan has hotspot tethering, voicemail, caller ID, picture messaging, texting, all included. And again, it's just whatever you use is what you end up paying for. Ting keeps it simple. So go over to TechSNAP.ting.com to get started. Take a look around. Try out their savings calculator. Put your current information in there. I think you'll be pleasantly surprised how much money you'll save. I've saved a ton of money this year because I'm not paying into a contract that I don't get the full value out of. I'll be honest, I've had cell phone bills as high as $120 a month. And I guarantee you, I was not getting $120 a month worth of value. Now my Ting bill is usually around $30 per month. And that is pretty...
My cell phone bill was only $30?
I know. And that's with everything, man. That's with tethering, hotspot. That's with a smartphone. I mean, it's really awesome. Ting has a whole list of great devices. You can go find those out by going to TechSNAP.ting.com. Check them out because you own those devices. Just like when you buy a desktop or a laptop, you own that device. It's yours. You're not paying into some sort of subsidized plan where they extract the money out of you over a 2-year period and inflate the cost. That game is getting old. It's going to be going away soon, and Ting's already ahead of all of it. So go to TechSNAP.ting.com to get started. And a huge thank you to Ting for sponsoring the TechSNAP program.
Yep.
Alan, I just want, it's too late. It's all done. But since this is our last show of 2013, I wanted to say a special thank you to all the folks who did pick up a Jupiter Broadcasting shirt. I'm hoping that by the time you're watching this, you're receiving them. It's probably in this range because it's going to take, depending on where you're at, a little bit of time. But we ended up selling 1,053 shirts towards our goal of 499. So it was very successful.
Nice.
So thank you, everyone. And we'd love to see pictures. So if you got a T-shirt or a long sleeve or a hoodie, take a picture of you rocking it. Or all three. Did you get all three?
Yes.
Look at you. I got a hoodie. I'm excited. Take a picture of it, you guys, and send it in to Angela at JupiterBroadcasting.com. You might find that it ends up in a future episode of the Faux Show. Who knows? Angela sets the pace for the Faux Show, but I'm just saying there might be a good chance. So I just wanted to say a special thank you to everybody. You helped us close out 2013, and we got some big stuff planned for 2014, and I hope you'll be there for us.
Mine's estimated to arrive January 6th.
Oh yeah, so you got that Canadian delay. Yeah, but that's all right. It'll still be in time for you to bundle up.
Yes, it'll be plenty of time to keep warm, which is what I wanted it for. And then I have a T-shirt for when it gets hot.
There you go. Perfect. Actually, you got a cool shirt on today. You should only share it with the live stream. You should share it with us real quick. It's pretty good.
Yes.
It says /everybody stand back. I know regular expressions. You know, Alan.
And then on the back, it's got...
I was going to say. Yeah, that's nice, Alan. That's nice. Where do you get these geeky shirts all the time? I'm jealous. ThinkGeek, of course. Well,
I think you can buy it directly from XKCD as well, because it's actually an XKCD
original.
Comic.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, well, anything else we want to cover in the news segment? No, I think so, right? That's it, yeah?
Nope.
Okay.
Nope, we're good.
All right, well, then with the news all done, that means it's time for the TechSNAP feedback. Thanks for sending your emails to techsnap@jupiterbroadcasting.com or popping that contact link at the top of our website, or even better, starting a thread in our subreddit over at links.techsnap.tv. Alan, our first email this week comes from Techie Cluster. He writes in, hello, Chris. Hello, Alan, and everyone else. How do you verify if a website is legitimate or not? For example, I use Web of Trust, Virus Total, Google Safe Browsing, and Stop Badware. I'm interested to see what tools and services security experts use. Thanks, and keep up the awesome show.
I guess it depends what he means by legitimate. Like, I'm assuming what he means is safe.
Yeah, not like somebody's fraudulently operating the site, that kind of thing.
But like when someone asking if the site is legitimate, I'm like, you mean is it pretending to be some other website?
Is it a phishing site, that kind of thing?
Right. Like I've seen many, websites that try to look like PayPal or your bank or something. But I think what he's just saying is trying to tell if a website is evil or not, which is a little bit different.
Yeah, I mean, so he's got a good start with a Web of Trust, Virus Total, and Google Safe Browsing.
Google Safe Browsing does a pretty good job, although it's not that quick. Right? Somebody has to. Google's bots have to stumble across it first and figure out that it's malware before it gets blocked. But
I would argue that he's kind of going about this perhaps backwards in a sense. So the problem is a lot of these tools are reactive in a lot of sense. Some of them they look for certain things, but that's why I like tools like Ghostery. And I know I've mentioned a few times, but Ghostery, it looks at the page in real time and tells you what it's doing. And if you combine something like Ghostery with an extension like NoScript and FlashBlock, you're essentially going in with shields up. You're like the USS Voyager when Captain Janeway comes for the future and gives it a blade of armor. The Borg can take shots at you, but your blade of armor is up, and they're not getting through.
Right. Unless there's an exploit for the browser specifically or something. But yeah, something like FlashBlock, so Flash can't start automatically. Disabling Java, so it can't start automatically.
Yeah, take Java out of the browser.
Yeah. Well, basically you need something like FlashBlock for it. So it only starts if you specifically need it. Like if you need it for something, you want it to just not be able to start unless you click to activate the plugin and then approve the pop-up and so on and so on. That helps a lot. And yeah, something like Ghostery, they can look and like say, there's an iframe here, and it seems to be going to some very random looking URL.
Because even the most legitimate sites we have seen just on this show over 2013 get hacked.
Yes. There was it some major newspaper, wasn't it? Yeah. We talked about, and the advertising network on it got hacked, and it was putting malware and causing redirects on people's computers. And so when you're on a perfectly legitimate site, they can actually have malware just as bad as anywhere else.
Yeah, and I've told this story before, but my local King 5 NBC affiliate, their website was compromised, got malware on there, and that day I had a whole rash of clients in the Seattle area that were just browsing legitimate King 5 local news and got infected. So even a quote-unquote legitimate site can have a bad day. Whereas these tools that we've just mentioned sort of give you proactive protections. Honestly, the other thing, and this isn't me being a hater, is just don't use Windows IE. Don't use Internet Explorer. And then secondarily, don't use Windows if you can go that far. But if you do use Windows, use these tools. Use Firefox, use Chrome, use Opera, those kinds of things. Stay out of the good old IE. I will put a link to Ghostery in the show notes.
Try to avoid going to websites that you've never heard of. But
what about like using something like OpenDNS and turning on some of the filtering at the OpenDNS level?
Yeah, that's basically what Google Safe Browsing is. But
Yeah.
yeah, that can work, I suppose.
Yeah, that might be like that might be too much. That might be like.
Not necessarily.
Suppose if you had kids too, it might be more worth it. That's this is one thing that's really difficult is when you have families that have a single computer in the house and you have a wide age range of folks who use those computers in the house. Some of these tools can help them when they're on there too and don't know any better. All right, Alan, you ready for the next email? This one is about IPMI. IPMI. Yes. On BSD Talk, That's when Alan was interviewed on BSD Talk. Alan, you mentioned that you use IPMI for managing your servers. I'm very intrigued by this. A few years ago, I was running 9 IBM X Series 1U servers, all with processors and the BMC out-of-band management systems. I had physical access to the consoles on these servers, so I never messed with the management systems themselves. I would be interested to hear how you use these systems in your day-to-day operation, their disadvantages and advantages in certain environments, i.e. remote versus local, terminology surrounding IPMI standards protocols, and, of course, any open-source IPMI software, maybe the initial bootstrapping process, and how the OS and out-of-band management systems communicate. I use OpenBSD exclusively since 2003, and it looks like they have an IPMI tool and a free IPMI package. It also looks like there's an open IPMI project, but it looks Linux specific. If you could shed some light on this topic, that would be awesome.
Right. So IPMI is the Intelligent Platform Management Interface. And basically, it's a way to control a machine from a little chip on the motherboard instead of... So you don't require the help of the operating system, which is especially useful when the operating system isn't working.
Yes. Or
isn't even there yet, right? Like, when I rent servers in Europe, we'll get delivered a blank server with IPMI and then install the OS on it.
Right.
So it was originally, the specification was developed by Intel back in like 1998, something like that. Version 1 of the standard came out in 98, 1.5 was 2001, and 2.0 was 2004. Intel has since moved on and has vPro, which has been coming along and is mostly the same idea, but a little bit different. And it's kind of specific to Intel now instead of being standard. And, Dell's kind of gone and done their own thing with iDRAC and HP with ILO and et cetera.
Yep.
But yeah, there are some security considerations for it, especially you see bad things happen when people expose their management interface directly to the internet. Because this is a tiny little embedded BMC chip, it doesn't really have protection against brute forcing and stuff. So what we do for ours is they're on a VPN, and so you have to connect to the VPN and then connect into that private VLAN. Also, most of the servers will have 1 or 2 NICs like normal, or 4 or whatever, and they'll have a separate dedicated NIC for the management interface.
Right.
But when you power up the machine, if there's no cable connected to the management interface, it'll fail over to having the management interface run as a second MAC address on the primary NIC.
Oh.
It's a setting you can change to make it not do that if you don't want it to. Like if you want to completely disable the management system. But it's done like that so that in some situations you want to avoid having to run an extra cable to every server, right? If you only have so many switch ports or only so much cable. Yeah, for most of the places how we use it, it's on a VPN because we don't trust the security of it at all.
Now, what about like tools in the OS to manage the IPMI board? Do you have like a...
Right. There's a tool called IPMI tool. It's open source and does a bunch of stuff. And then free IPMI is like I don't know that much about it, but it's like a specification for doing it instead of the proprietary way.
Okay.
And IPMI tool has support for that. So yeah, with IPMI tool, it allows you can send commands from one server to another or via the device directly to the server you're on. So you can, I've used that to like change what IP address the IPMI system is using on the machine I was on. Like I had one machine that was connected to the internet with one ISP, and I was just about to shift it to a different ISP or a different connection. So it was going to be in a different subnet. And so I needed to reprogram it before I disconnected the cable so I'd be able to reconnect. Yeah.
I have used more so the Dell Drac config, but
I have like 2 servers with the Dell, one with the HP, and one with like a Fujitsu. And
what was it before HP
like 80
bought
with the Supermicro one?
What was the compact system before HP bought them? And it was a full-fledged PCI board that had a big old battery pack on it, and like a RAM, DRAM stick on it, and
before my time.
It was big. I was probably Smart something. Everything was Smart something back then with compact. And any of these systems, I mean, you really do feel like you're living in the future because a lot of times they support like USB device attachments and all this kind of stuff.
I guess, the biggest thing with IPMI is you get full KVM access.
Yeah.
So I can open up the program here on my desktop, and it's like I'm sitting at the console, right? I can type and it shows up. I can use the mouse. I can see. But it does redirection, so I can mount an ISO image off my hard drive as if it was a CD-ROM, a USB-connected CD-ROM on the server. And that's how I install the operating system.
Chat room's also mentioning free IPMI is also a full software project.
Right, but I don't know what it does.
Yeah.
Does it say?
I had a flash update. Hermit, back to our last question. Hermit offers some suspenders for that belt for our friend who wants to validate safe sites. He includes a Firefox add-on called DNSSEC Validator, which checks whether a domain is displayed page address is secured by DNSSEC. And then users can easily visualize and recognize whether their page is loaded from an authentic server or whether the page could have been spoofed. So I'll put a link to that in the website or in the show notes too if you want to help validate sites. Be a good one. We've got Ghostry and NoScript and now DNSSEC Validator.
So yeah, free IPMI is similar to IPMI tool. It provides things like being able to access the sensors. So IPMI has out of band, you can access information like the speed of the fans and the temperature of the CPU, and like I even use it. I use it in Nagios to monitor the power supplies on the servers. So I know when one of the redundant power supplies fails, because having 2 power supplies is great in case one fails. But if one fails and you don't know.
Right.
What happens when the second one fails? If
you're not there for the beep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I have Nagios monitoring set up for that. And also, I can just monitor power utilization. The power supplies actually say, I'm currently drawing 1.2 amps.
That's really cool. And you could chart all that, too, if you need to, if that data is exposed to you.
Nagios is letting me chart that.
Mm-hmm. Very cool. All right.
And you can power off the machine or on remotely. So one of the places we rent servers from, they have the rack full of servers that are for rent, and they're powered off because nobody's using them.
Yeah.
And then you just put in your coins, and they power up your server for you until you stop paying for it.
Put in your coins like a game. All right. Well, so look, ask us some questions, would you? Go over to jupiterbroadcasting.com and click that contact link. Choose TechSNAP from the drop-down. And then send it in or email us, techsnap@jupiterbroadcasting.com. Or if you want a question right away, the links.techsnap.tv subreddit.
Yeah, so we're completely out of questions. So if you don't send in some questions, there will be no more feedback segment.
Nope. Be all done. I'm done.
You know, a couple of weeks ago, we asked people to send in recommendations for the stories they thought were the most important for the year or the most overblown across the year or the thing they got the not enough coverage or whatever.
Yeah.
And we got 0 submissions. Come on, people. Try hard.
Zilch. Nada. Now, we got something in the roundup to kind of make up for it, but I'm just saying the inbox is empty because we just did 2 episodes back-to-back. So now only you, dear TechSNAP audience member, can send in the feedback. So that way next week we have an epic feedback segment. And we make it, there's multiple ways to do so it's not too hard. All right, Alan, well, with the feedback all done, that means it's time for the TechSNAP Roundup. Welcome to the TechSNAP Roundup. Yeah, that's what that crazy music means. Now, the Roundup are stories that didn't quite fit at the top of the show, but we still wanted to go over them, maybe give you some links to follow up on your own after the show. And a lot of these links come from our subreddit over at links.techsnap.tv. And I wanted to know if you bought off on this first story. It's probably legit, actually. New traffic stat, 61.5% of all website traffic is bot traffic. You think that could be possible?
Well, when they say traffic, they don't qualify what that means or how they measured it. So traffic to certain websites that they measured from, looking at the number of visits versus hits versus bytes of traffic.
Yeah.
Right. So no, they're just being crazy.
I think it's crap too. I mean,
some websites, yes, a lot of bots visit websites.
Yeah,
and
there's more and more bots
how
all
they
the
qualify
time.
what's a bot and so on, and
Yeah,
it's
funny because I saw
news sites get crawled by Google more often so that their new content shows up on Google.
I actually heard I can't remember. I heard this reported, I thought, recently, like on the TV or radio. I can't remember now, but just looked at when I heard that, I'm like, what? So I went and found the story and stuck it in the roundup because I wanted to bust that one. All right, well, here's a good one. Origin of common UI symbols.
Yes, this one I wanted to... I saw this on Imager the other day, and I was like, hey, that's actually a good one.
Yeah. Like the first one here is the power symbol, right?
Yeah. And it says, as far back as World War II, engineers used the binary system to label individual power buttons, right? I for 1 for on and 0 for off. In 1973, the International Electrotechnical Commission, the IEC, the guys that made the standard for the laptop connector we talked about last week, vaguely codified a broken circle with the line in it and decided that meant it was a power button. Right?
Geez, 73, really?
Yeah.
Well, how about that, Alan?
And then like the symbol for a network, right? The bunch of little computers hanging off of a wire. Well, that's came from IBM. And according to the guy that invented it, the symbol was part of a set of symbols that were meant to depict the various local area network connections available at the time. An array of blocks which were purposely non-hierarchical, each representing computers and terminals. And at that time, it would have actually been like a BNC network where the connectors actually looked like that.
Yeah.
Right? There's like a bus line would go straight, and then there would be T's off of it into each computer.
Yeah. Yeah, wow. Of course, there's the Bluetooth symbol, which is a little more modern, you'd think. I don't see the year on here, but it was an instrument of uniting and warning factions in part of what is now Norway, Sweden, Denmark, and just as Bluetooth technology is designed to allow collaboration between differing industries such as the computing, mobile phone, and automotive markets. So this actually goes back into history. Wow.
And also the fact that it looks like the letter B and teeth, and so that's how they decided on it.
That does help.
Or the pause button, right? The 2 bars. Everybody knows that means pause, but nobody knows why that means pause.
That's a good point.
As far as the pause symbol goes, many have noted it resembles the notion for an open connection from an electrical circuit, right? Because the pieces are not touching.
Right.
Some say it's a simple a stop symbol with a chunk carved out of the center of it. And they said they put their money on the classic origins, the musical notation, which means await or pause.
Yeah. And then, of course, here's the play button, which we've all seen forever. Neither the right pointing triangle nor the double pause bars seem to have a definitive origin, though. They first appeared as tape transport symbols on reel-to-reel tape decks during the mid-1960s. And then, of course, there's USB.
So the USB symbol was originally designed to kind of look like a trident, the pitchfork kind of thing. And they put different shapes on the end to denote the different kind of devices you might put on it.
Oh, that's adorable. Of course, you got the sleep ZZ button, which looks like a moon. And, the Firewire one. Here we go. I've been curious about this. Back in 1995, a small group at Apple, the main developer of Firewire, set about designing a symbol that would accurately reflect the new technology they were working on. Originally intended as a serial alternative to SCSI, Firewire's main allure was that it promised high-speed connectivity for digital audio-video equipment, so designers opted for a symbol with 3 prongs representing video, audio, and data. Initially, the symbol was red, but was later altered to yellow for unknown reasons. You want to go through all of these?
No.
Do you have a favorite?
I didn't even notice that there was more.
There's an @ symbol in here.
Yeah. Does it say what the @ one's about?
The @ symbol, let's see here. The @ symbol is on the list to earn a spot in it probably has something to do with the net ruling runes deep of mysterious origins. Let's see. Just kind of goes on. There's a lot of...
Yeah, so in 1971,
here we go.
Programmer Raymond Tomlinson decided to insert the symbol between the network address and the user to separate the username and the server. Prior to the use, the @ also graced the keyboards and the American Underwood typewriter in 1885 as an accounting shorthand symbol meaning at the rate of. So it actually meant at back then. And that's why they used it. Go back even further and things start to get hazy. Some suggest that the @ symbol has its origin in the 6th century when monks adopted it as the best way of writing the word ad in Latin, which actually means at.
That's interesting. I don't know about that one. They're all in the show notes, though, if you guys want to check them out. They're kind of cool just to see where some of these things we've seen forever, like our whole lives practically, where they came from. What do you think of this one, Alan? The next story in the roundup, Google said to consider designing their own chips for their servers, probably go ARM-based, kind of like we've seen some cell companies design their own chips for their cell phones. Google says, well, you know what? We got so many dang servers. We don't need Intel. He says, this is a quote from a Google spokesperson. He says, we're actively engaged in designing the world's best infrastructure. This includes both hardware design and the software design.
I don't know. I still like Intel.
I do too. Although I think ARM's going to play a big role, and you could see
the fact that ARM is willing to license their technology so that other companies like Google could just build an ARM-based processor.
Yep.
I can see how that might appeal if you're Google, but I don't know that that'll make any sense if you're me, for instance.
Right. Yeah. Especially if you're not building the entire stack, right?
Yeah.
I could see that. Speaking of Google, they fixed a credit card security hole.
Right. So for a long time ago, they blocked it. So start at the beginning. Google has the ability to search for a range of numbers on the search. So if you put a number, ... another number, it'll search for any results that have anything between those two numbers.
Okay.
So somebody got smart and decided to put credit card number in, right? The range of valid credit cards or social insurance numbers or social security numbers in the States. So Google blocked those. But then somebody figured out that if you put the numbers in hex, Google still understands what it means, but it wasn't blocked. And so a security researcher reported it, and Google apparently ignored him. And after being ignored for a long time, he started posting online about it, and eventually Google fixed it, but they still haven't credited him with being the guy behind
that's what they mean by snubbing the discoverer. I see.
Yeah.
Yeah, he reported as early as 2012, December 28.
And he's just... so there's some question about, there's a bug bounty for that type of thing, and he feels like he's... he did the proper steps to report it to Google, and only when he made a fuss about it did they pay any attention to him.
Yeah. Well, Ron Miller's got a fired-up post over at Computer World. He says, DRM, it's always been a horrible idea, and now there's mounting evidence that's also counterproductive. Boom! Mm-hmm. Give it to him, Ron!
Yeah. More often than not, DRM stops someone who's paid for something from being able to watch it, more than it stops someone who wasn't going to pay for it from watching
Have you ever gotten HDCP error?
No, but I don't own a TV that understands HDCP.
So I can't remember what it was, but I was connecting to, I know what it was. I was connecting to the Wirecast machine to capture like an Xbox or something. I don't remember what it was. Just got totally denied. HDCP copy protection error. Sorry, you cannot display this content. Go screw yourself. And it was totally for legitimate purposes. And it's like, if I'd pirated this stuff, it wouldn't have these protections built in, and I could just do what I want. So I completely agree. I think Ron's onto it right here. So good for you, Ron.
Right, but bigger cases are, I guess one was Disney recently pulled all their movies off of Amazon's video platform because they're having their own now.
Yeah.
Well, so people that paid for this collection of Disney Christmas movies will now not be able to watch those movies for Christmas, even after they paid for them.
They did the same thing temporarily on iTunes, too. And I guess they backtracked after a big eruption of disgust over it. And it shows you, like, these digital locker services, just because you paid for it. And Netflix has the same thing, right? They have rolling availability of streaming titles. It's silly.
Yep.
All right, this next story might actually be the kind of story that makes the government reform some of the NSA's policies. Saab wins the Brazil jet deal after NSA spying sours the Boeing deal. This is one of many deals we're seeing now where companies in China or Brazil are not going with the U.S. solution.
So Brazil was looking to spend $4.5 billion on some new fighter jets, and instead of buying Boeing FA-18s, they bought Saab's, I don't even know how, I forget what they're called now. Do you see the name of the plane? It's not really an important detail, but it's Gripen NG fighters.
Okay.
36. It's a lot of money for 36 airplanes.
Well, and they're not alone. Investors are mulling over a lawsuit for IBM as well. Did you hear about this?
Yes. Did we talk about that on the previous episode? Maybe not.
I guess yes. IBM had a $12 billion loss, and they're saying that the investors are saying that IBM failed to properly warn the investors over the amount of money they would be losing due to the NSA revelations.
Yep.
And now we're seeing, of course, all the tech giants like Facebook, Apple, and Twitter, and Google, and Amazon all have gotten together, Microsoft, to write a letter saying this is going to hurt our business. And Cisco has also lost a bunch of money. So this is starting to actually hurt them pretty bad. And, you know, maybe those corporations will use some of their monies to pressure and organize their lobbyists. All right, no big surprise here, but it's come out that the NSA has had the capability for quite a while to crack 2G and 3G cell phone, right? 3G too, right?
I think so, yes.
Yeah, I know it's definitely 2G.
We've actually covered this like a year ago, that people other than the government have had the ability to crack this cipher. It's been a really bad cipher for a really long time. And the carriers have just never had an interest in fixing it before. But now that, you know, the NSA has it and, you know, there might be pressure from, say, the governments in Europe to force their phone companies to start using an encryption that the NSA doesn't already have cracked.
And they say also, they point out that even newer phones that have 3G or 4G modems in them, in some cases, will fall down to the 2G modem when making a phone call. And
or to say battery, but also there was one research we covered in a very early episode of TechSNAP. When you make a fake cell tower that's closer to the user, you can set it to like 2G only and no encryption mode.
Right.
So there's one where phones were supposed to warn you when it tried to talk to a tower and the tower didn't support encryption. But a lot of phones didn't because there are no legitimate towers that don't support encryption anymore. And so people could just make a fake tower and actually still route your call, but be able to listen in on it, like man-in-the-middle attack, basically, and just tell your phone to turn the encryption off, and it would. So, yeah, it's the backwards compatibility requirement here is going to make this really hard to fix, but it doesn't mean we shouldn't start fixing it now as opposed to not.
Maybe free agent Bruce Schneier could consult with these cell agents or cell companies. Bruce Schneier has left the telco BT that he worked with. I guess he was
their security futurist.
Right,
a weird title.
Futurologist.
Yeah,
futurologist. Yeah.
It sounds like BT asked him to leave. It's not very detailed. They said it wasn't anything to do with the Snowden stuff. In general, you know, he's been doing a lot of that stuff, like working with that newspaper. And like, I don't know if you noticed how much he's been writing lately.
Yeah, maybe he's been busy.
Like, well, it seems like he doesn't really have time for the day job.
Yeah.
At British Telecom, so it kind of makes sense. And he might have an offer to go somewhere else.
It could be a higher
even
calling.
If not, I'm sure. Yeah, I'm sure there's lots of other people that'd love to snap him up anyway.
Oh yeah, man, that guy's not gonna have any problem finding work.
Write his own ticket, basically.
Yeah. All right, so here it is, the last roundup story of 2013. Dun 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 dun. So the year in downtime, the top 10 outages of 2013 by datacenterknowledge.com. We'll go through a few of these. I
love the image they have at the top there. They did like a time lapse or something.
Oh yeah,
this guy.
Yeah, like, the multi-armed guy like working on a whole bunch of stuff.
He's got a screwdriver, cable crimpers, a screwdriver, and I don't know what that other one is.
They're doing it wrong though. They start with number 1. You start with number 10 and work your way anyways. Number 1, healthcare.gov disaster. That was kind of a big outage story, so I'll give it to him. Number 2, major outages at Bluehost, HostGator, and HostMonster. The year's most extensive.
Shows what you get for $5 hosting.
Yeah. The year's most extensive web hosting downtime occurred on August 2nd when the Utah data center supporting some of the industry's best-known brands suffered extended network outages. The Visa downtime across Canada, costly.
I never even heard that.
The Windows Azure Xbox Live problems and Xbox One launches made the list. Power outage knocks out DreamHost. Remember that one?
Yep.
On March 20th. Wow, that was March 20th? Oh, and then the second page won't load for me.
Oh, I got it. Number 6 was the rippling effect felt from Amazon cloud outages. Every time Amazon was down, it knocked out all kinds of other stuff. Like, you know, half of Netflix's, some of their infrastructures on Amazon. Reddit used to be, lots of other sites.
Yeah.
You know, when they had the downtime in August, that was a big deal.
Yeah.
They also had a Friday the 13th outage in September, and they had a last year they had a major outage on Christmas Eve. And it really screwed with Netflix because everybody was sitting home at Christmas Eve trying to watch movies on Netflix.
Right. Got their new Rokus. They're now loaded.
Number 7 was a data center fire at a data center in Michigan that knocked the county office offline. Right.
Then there's the Toronto flooding that killed the data center cooling systems at the KO data center. Massive rainstorm which caused the widespread flooding. And then here's the last two. Number 9, the New Jersey state government slowed by a data center outage. He won't be known, if Chris Christie runs for president, he won't be known as the governor of uptime. A power outage at a New Jersey state data center in September knocked out services for a number of state agencies, including the Motor Vehicle Commission and many state websites. And number 10, Yahoo's tough data center users of Yahoo Mail experienced up to 4 days of availability problems last week, prompting a personal apology from Marissa Mayer.
Yeah.
That's a good list. And Scale Engine isn't on it. That's even better.
Nope.
Yeah, no Scale Engine. Wow, Alan, well, there you go. That brings us to the end of this week's episode. It also brings us to the end of 2013 because our next show will be on January 2nd in 2014. So thank you, everyone who's watched all of 2013, and thank you to everyone who's joined us in 2013. We'd love to have you watch live. It makes it more fun because every now and then we do extended recording sessions and hang out with you guys between segments. So when we take a break between like feedback and roundup, that's time for us to just kill a little airtime with you guys and just chat with whatever's on your mind. So you get
I
extra
also answer questions during that time sometimes.
And sometimes during the show.
Yes.
All right, so here's how you can watch live if you want to participate in that. Head over to jblive.tv on a Thursday. We generally start around 1 p.m. Pacific, which is
4 p.m. Eastern, 2000 UTC.
Pow! Go to jupiterbroadcasting.com/calendar to get that converted to a time zone near you. And also you can go to jblive.info to have the audio stream in case maybe you want to listen on your mobile device while you're on the go or you're sitting at a desk and they don't want you streaming video. jblive.info's got you covered. But of course, TechSNAP comes out on Thursdays or Friday morning, depending on where you live, over at jupiterbroadcasting.com. And don't forget, you can subscribe to those RSS feeds. Then you just get this show automatically, and you don't even have to worry about it. You just get a new TechSNAP goodness every single week for, like, at least so far, 142 weeks in a row.
Yeah.
Kapow!
Craziness.
That is craziness. All right, Alan, we'll have a happy holidays and a great new year, and we'll see you back here in 2014, all right?
Yep.
Okay, everybody. Well, thank you so much for tuning this week's episode of TechSNAP. We'll see you right back here next week.